This episode is brought to you by Absolute Landscapes. Absolute Landscapes is a landscape maintenance company that focuses heavily on commercial property maintenance. Call today for information about the services we provide and how we can best help you. 803 427 5944.
But yeah, man, I'm really interested in get into this with you. I know we talked last time, we touched on some good things. So if you want to introduce yourself and just kind of say who you are, what you do, and just kind of preface the conversation, we'll get into it.
So my name is Raheem Nelson. I'm an illustrator and creative entrepreneur. I work with clients like the city of New Haven. I'm born and raised in New Haven. I live in West Haven with my wife now. For my day job, I work as a marketing and communications specialist for the Milford Arts Council. So that's everything from like curating art shows to doing photography, video, and I also get a lot of opportunities to travel as well. So as a creative entrepreneur, I do a little bit of everything. My mainstay is definitely illustration, children's books. I do murals. Also have a skill called graphic recording, where I'll go into meetings and fireside chats and basically create illustrations that capture the main idea of what people are talking about. So that can be anything from like the mental health space, medical field, tech and AI, like whatever the conversation calls for, I'll be that artist kind of making a live infographic that goes directly to the client and directly to the attendees too. So it tends to be a service that I have that people get most excited about because I'm literally capturing people's thoughts, feelings, and opinions and making them into art.
That's crazy, man. So these people give you like I guess it's maybe an inspiration for the artwork, whether it's I don't know, a situation or emotion or I think you said maybe capture the story type thing, and you just kind of put that into art.
Exactly.
Man, I think that's the definition of artist.
Yeah.
That's like sounds like some real talent right there, man.
Thank you.
So what do? You just kind of like these things just kind of come to you, these ideas just kind of come to you? I mean, do you like where do you think that comes from? It just kind of like, hey, I see this and I this is what I think about it. Let me put it on paper. I mean, how does that work?
So I do so many things, but I think in terms of like my core artistry, it started from comic books and cartooning, and it kind of branched out from there. Like I'm really big on Spider-Man, Superman, Sonic the Hedgehog, those type of comics. Been reading them since like grade school. And for me, art and storytelling are very intertwined. So as a kid, when I was reading these stories, these books, I thought to myself, okay, how do I make that myself? How do I make that my own? And what I started doing, I would, copy the stories, and then I would start to create my own original stories, and that branched off into doing like editorials, which are always fun to do. Like I did some editorials for the Orange Times in Connecticut a while ago, and love having my editorial illustrations featured in like Yale and other prestigious clients like that. And then for my personal work, I love to travel, so that will either be painting people, places, still lifes. Like I like a lot of everything. So sometimes what I try to do for myself as an artist is kind of hone in, okay, I'm interested in capturing this today, and I'm going to spend an hour, 2 hours doing still lifes, or tomorrow I'm going to just do portraits. So with having all these interests, I try to, I guess, be disciplined in what I want to paint or draw on a given day for myself. And then I also look at the type of clients I have and what they might be looking to hire me for. Like I've been doing a lot of children's books lately and murals, and I'm a digital artist trained as a cartoonist and as an oil painter. So I've kind of been able to go back and forth lately with doing cartooning, doing illustration in the digital space, but also doing like these public murals. And I'm looking at getting hired for another one to do a mural for my mom's school at Russ Woodward. So I'm looking into just branching out and to not only have my work in a digital space, but in a physical space too.
That's impressive, man. This makes me think about a conversation I had with somebody recently, and maybe you've heard this before, that some people, if they think of a thing, let's just say a train, like some people hear the word train, some people like in their mind, they physically see a train, and then some people see the word train. So I didn't realize that was a thing, because the way I see it, if I were to hear the word train, I would just think of an image of a train. I would not necessarily think of the word train.
Hmm.
But I mean, I'm curious from an artistic point of view, man. Like if somebody says a thing, like in your mind, what comes to your mind when you hear it? Just something random, a train or whatever. I mean, what do you see like an illustration of this? Do you like think of how you could draw it? Because there's something clear that's going on with artistic minds, man. That the most of us don't necessarily have that part.
Yeah, I love the line of questioning too. So trains are actually near and dear to my heart anyway. So the short answer is I think of not only an image or an illustration, but I think of a memory. I think of a memory of being on the train, and I commute to work pretty regularly anyway. But aside from that, I used to commute to art college, going from New Haven to New York. I went to the School of Visual Arts, which is in Manhattan on East 23rd Street. So a lot of early mornings on the train, carrying canvas paintings, having to put them on the overhead racks of the Metro North, going from between New Haven and New York, Grand Central. So when I hear the word, I think of the image, I think of the illustration that I've created of a train, and I also think of the memory.
Yeah, see that you're hitting that thing from like several different angles. I would just think of like just a picture. Not even really a train that I've seen, just a train, like just I don't know, I guess whatever I think a train would look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. But I mean, I guess it has to be that way because like I said, people who, draw, or even on the other end of the artistic spectrum, people who produce music, or
Mm-hmm.
who I also think that art is like like there's a form of words that we use with art, like people who are very poetic or very good with have a very high vocabulary, people who are just natural authors or whatever. All these things are forms of art, and so I
Yeah.
just feel like for a person to have this sort of I don't know what you would say mindset, this sort of angle that they see
Yeah.
things,
It's a mindset.
it's fascinating to me. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I
That's
think
cool.
even too, man, like with like even with something like entrepreneurship. I mean, you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
that you're a creative entrepreneur. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship in itself is a form of art.
Oh yeah, definitely, 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 definitely. Yeah, I definitely want to touch on the whole concept of entrepreneurship. And I remember getting out of college and still, I guess, getting out of my shell in terms of like being, I guess, a social artist because I'm in a place now like where I love to be social. I love networking events. I love, parties, going out with my wife, having a good time because we both love networking and making connections. And then just thinking of, being a postgraduate from this art college and like trying to find my way. And it took like, it definitely took me some time to get to a place where I guess I was comfortable in my skin, to go and network, to go talk about my own work, and to also be curious about others. Like what I always try to bring to a conversation with people is to, simply ask how someone else is doing, ask to see what they're into, and just, what they're up to, and not even in the sense of like, oh, okay, well, let's definitely work together. Let's, force an outcome because like that's not what I'm about. But I have a genuine interest in what other people are working on, what other people are doing. It's all inspiring and it's all really cool to make connections, like genuine connections, and get to know people. And then I've always found that if there's a collaboration to be had, like it's most likely going to happen naturally. So that's why I try to go into each and every conversation, being curious about the other person while also sharing what I have going on too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even that, man, even if you meet a person and the ability to develop rapport and build relationships, I mean, even that is a form of art because
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people who are better at that than others.
Right.
But what's crazy, man, is like when we talk about entrepreneurship and we talk about the connection to art and how entrepreneurship is itself a form of art.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get off on a tangent or a rabbit hole about the
No,
education
this is
system here, but
fine.
it's like,
Yeah, it's all good.
the education system, Well, I mean, like the education system in America is not really set up to cater creative people, like
Right.
artists, or at least the public education system is not like artists or entrepreneurs or, whatever. Um, and that's crazy, because if you think about an organization, a big company or whoever, it's almost like the people who are very creative are the ones who can turn the direction of the company. If like now, like these days, a lot has changed in the past, 10, 15, 20 years. And some of the, like we see companies, just for example, like it was, who was it, Blockbuster, that went out
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
business because of Netflix. and
Mm-hmm.
and you just, I mean, it's a question to ask yourself, like, what if they had that just one creative person who saw that curve coming, and they just kind of got in front
Mm-hmm.
of it, and maybe they
Mm-hmm.
would still, they would still be. But it's crazy, because it seems like that creativity is just something that's so important to, especially a huge company, it's so
Mm-hmm.
important to possibly the direction of the company. Like now, things are changing so quickly, and we have technology, and there's these virtual meetings and stuff, and it's just, I mean, things are changing so quickly, and it's not the same as it used to be. So it's almost like you have to have that creativity within a company to survive. But at the same time, it's not something that's, what would you say, that's promoted or supported, I feel
Or
like, in the
celebrated.
education or business world, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or yeah, I mean, and with it being such a fundamental, part, it seems like, I don't know how to question that.
No, yeah, it's really interesting that you bring up the topic of education. I'm not sure if we mentioned this in the introductory call that we had, but for my day job, I used to be a special needs paraprofessional, and I was doing that for a long time, working one to one with a special needs student, and then working in what's called a resource room with different kids on basically a caseload, where I would work closely with them and support the classroom teacher. And I could see that there were a lot of our students in that self-contained room, or throughout the building, that were into other things, like maybe they were drawing, or maybe they were into music or social media, and want to get more into that, but they didn't necessarily have the outlet for it, and maybe they would act out in different ways. And it's kind of unfortunate, especially like in urban school settings, that there are outlets, but like not always the resources where somebody could discover about entrepreneurship, for instance, and kind of decrease their knowledge gap about it. So it's not like, oh, well, you have to go into a trade and you have to do this and you have to do that. And there's nothing wrong with taking those pathways. It's like kids should be made aware of all the different pathways that they have. Because I know for myself, if I didn't have teachers, if I didn't have, my mom who's very supportive of my artistry, I would not be in the place where I am now and have like the expanded mindset that I have. Like my mindset, I try to expand my mindset like every day, like always researching, always reading.
Hmm.
Like I have a formal education, but like it doesn't stop there for me. Like I'm on YouTube, either watching videos about like style, fashion, art. I'm up to date on like what's going on in the AI space in terms of art, and have conversations with my friends about this type of stuff. So like I'm always aiming to be in a room where someone knows more than me, so I can discover, what's next, looking ahead. And that's always something I've tried to instill in the kids that I work with. And I still work with kids, even though I'm kind of outside of the education system now. But the kids just kind of find their way to me to be educated in different spaces, whether it's in like after school art programs, or like even like I had a exhibition recently, and there was a kid that came up to me. I think somebody referred him to me, and just asking about these classes on Zoom that I used to do, because I paint and draw on an iPad for all my work. And I always try to think like you never know who you're going to inspire, like in terms of the next generation. I try to think of that, but sometimes I'm focused on the artwork I'm creating, and then to have a former student or a kid come up to me and say, "Hey, well, you doing this has really inspired me. Like, how can I be like you? How can I um, get to the point where you're at?" And it's humbling to hear that, because like where I'm at now, like I feel great about where my career is going, but I still think there's so
Mhm.
much more room to grow. So like it's really nice to have that acknowledgement from like either my peers or kids that I'm inspiring along the way. Like it's like, I think like super important, especially since in terms of the educational system, that pathway for entrepreneurship isn't always like made readily apparent.
Yep. So you touched on something, man, and I think it's critical. You said that, and I'm paraphrasing. This isn't verbatim, but you said basically you always feel the need to grow, and I think that need to grow will ensure that you always do.
Yeah.
I think that's something that kind of perpetuates itself. The feeling that you feel like you need to grow will, I don't want to say guarantee, but it'll make it more likely that you do grow, because I think getting comfortable in a spot is one thing that's really, well, it's like the brakes on our growth, I think.
Yeah.
And so if you aspire to to continuously grow, I think that's a positive thing. But I want to backtrack for just a second. We were talking about the children and people, teenagers and stuff in education, public education. It's crazy because it seems like there's, obviously we need people in university, and we need people to go to university, and we need people to pursue those career paths. But it's almost like, I remember back when I was in high school, it was like the trades was, it was almost like a backup plan for people. We had
Mm,
the school would push the university, and it's like, oh well, if you don't want to do university, the trades are a backup. But the thing
hmm.
about it is, man, like there are, like, the trades will be better for some people than university ever will, because that just fits them better. And it's
Yeah.
like, you meet a guy and he's like, oh well, I'm a plumber. And it's like he says that as if it's not an important thing. But listen, have a plumbing problem and need to
Yeah.
call a plumber, and you'll see how important plumbing is. I mean, it's like
Exactly.
it's like these, just because it's not, you're not doing something that may, and the reason I bring this up is because it really bothers me, whether it's the education system or parents or spouse or friends, whatever it is, when people do something and it's like the only reason they're doing it is because they want to fit into a box that someone else has basically drawn out for them. I
Hmm.
think ultimately that just ends in their own unhappiness. And
Yeah.
it's like a person like you, if you have something that you can offer the world and you're not giving that to the world because you think the world thinks you're supposed to be a certain thing, it's like, man, we're missing out on this valuable, what is it, I don't want to say contribution, because everybody contributes, but it's like this thing that only you can provide the world.
Hmm.
We could be missing out on because people just want to be it fit into a box, I guess, basically. And I really have an issue with that, because I feel like, you know, I feel like that's a very good way to get to, your golden years and just have regret about what you maybe didn't do, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and just the stuff that we're touching on and getting into. That's just like why I was looking at coming on the podcast, and just looking forward to it, because we're getting into all these nuanced topics and ideas that I don't really get to touch on in maybe some
Hmm.
of the other media stuff I've done, and that's fine. But like I can appreciate how in depth this is, and I'm glad you mentioned that fitting yourself into a box. There was a lot of pressure on me while I was in public education to fit myself in a box. Like everybody was looking at me like, well, why don't you get certified to teach? Or why don't you go into the SPED department and get certified here, or become an art teacher and get certified in the public school system? And there were times where I was like, okay, this is the pathway that I'm just going to do. I need to make money. I need to pay the bills. I need to do all this stuff. And it just got to a point where I was like, no, that's really not going to work for me. That's really not going to bring me happiness. And it took a while. It took like having some summers where I had to do Uber to pay the bills and everything. Do I need to do in terms of an entrepreneurial level? But now being in this space where like I'm working for an arts council doing marketing and communications, which I absolutely love, that also supports my entrepreneurial stuff as an illustrator and creative entrepreneur. Instead of feeling like I had to give in and get certified to teach and take out a loan or try to get a grant to pay for these classes, which was not something that I wanted to do anyway. And I had a lot of offers from administration like, well, if you get into this classroom, we can, you can get certified later and it'll be fine. And I thought about it, I was like, that's really not going to work for me, because I know how much I get lit up working with clients, solving problems. And like, I'm now getting opportunities to curate art shows, and like, I can wake up, I can shoot video and photo and turn that into like an Instagram reel. And that'll be like what I do for my day at work, instead of being miserable, grading papers, doing something as an art teacher that I wouldn't necessarily be passionate about. And I've had a lot of art teachers over the years like inspire me. And I don't think they would have been able to do that if they weren't passionate about what they were doing. And I didn't want to step into this space, this field, and not be passionate about it and have this feeling of like, what if? Like, okay, why am I in this field? This is not really what I want to do.
Yep. Yeah, man, you mentioned something right there that I wholeheartedly agree with, the passion thing. Like when you have a passion for something and you're able to pour that into the thing that you're doing, man, that is a valuable resource to be able to pour into something. Because, you mentioned about the education thing, and there are, educators out there who are 100% passionate about what they do. And I think that we need that, because if you have an educator who's not passionate and they're trying to, push the next generation forward. You mentioned earlier about how you had some teachers and some mentors maybe that were very positive influences on you, to be where you're at now. And if we have teachers that have this, I'm just using teachers as an example, because this is a good one to see the lack of passion. I mean, you can say medical professional, you can say attorneys, whatever. If the lack of passion is not, if the passion is not there, then they're just going to kind of be there. And you have to ask, like, how does that, how much different could it be if this person was passionate about this thing versus the person that's not? And you mentioned I think you mentioned maybe some younger, maybe people who are not younger, maybe the same age, maybe even older, I don't know, but you mentioned earlier about people who kind of are looking at where you're at now, and it's almost like an inspiration to them. It's like, well, could you do that if you didn't have the passion for this thing,
No.
and I think
Definitely not.
yeah. And so, and man, I think passion is such I almost want to say that passion is like a compass. Passion is almost like a compass about where we need to be headed. And something else too, I'm not going to use your example, because I feel like I'm zeroing in on you right now. I'll just kind of go at a broad bird's eye view here. Yeah. So I'll just kind of back up to a bird's eye view here. Let's say if a person is doing something and they're pursuing a career and they're trying to progress their education or whatever. If you're not passionate about this thing, whether you're passionate or not, that doesn't really matter. If you're pursuing this thing, there are things that are going to come along and test how bad you really want it. There's obstacles you're going to have to overcome. There might be a funding situation, might be a transportation situation. Maybe this is something you have to work on. You do your 9 to 5 and maybe like 7 to 10, you're working on this thing. Whatever it is, there's going to be something that comes along that tests how bad you really want this thing. And if you don't have that passion behind it, man, if you don't have that sense of purpose, it's like pushing you towards this thing, you might find it much more easy to give up and not pursue this thing. And that's what I try to tell people. It's like, this is what I say when passion is such a valuable resource, man. It's like people, we want to talk about motivation. First of all, I don't believe in motivation. I feel like if you depend on motivation, you're never going to want to do anything. Discipline is a good one. Like discipline, saying like, I'm going to study this, I'm going to do this, this is what I'm going to do. That's okay. But like, that's only sustainable if you have a passion or a purpose behind it. Otherwise you're just tyrannizing yourself, and you're just trying to, I think you mentioned earlier, trying to force yourself to do something that you don't want to do. But the whole point here is this passion is just, man, it's so critical, like it's so critical to have this passion because what I always say, I think there's a Friedrich Nietzsche, if you can remember the why, you can bear the how. If you know why you're doing something, when it gets hard, when you want to give up, then you're going to know, oh, this is why I'm doing this. I have this okay, so this is how I can pursue this. And it sounds so simple, man, but it's like, in the grand scheme of things, I don't know what else other than maybe purpose, which I think can be tied to passion. I don't know something else that's going to keep pushing you forward the way that will.
Yeah, I think purpose and passion is the way to go. Like they're very intertwined.
Yeah. So yeah, man, I love the conversation we're having right here. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
already
me too.
like we're
This is
barely
great.
20
It's
minutes
really
into
great.
this thing, and
Yeah, yeah.
we're hitting on some good stuff here.
Yep, yep, yep.
Um, so so let me kind of go off on a side tangent here, maybe. About the creative process, like what
Mm-hmm.
do you have like something that you're comfortable sharing? Do you have like
Mm-hmm.
like a routine, like a fitness routine, or do you meditate,
Mm-hmm.
or do you like
Mm-hmm.
journal? Like what do you do that you feel like maybe kind of helps with this creative process? Because I think journaling, and I don't know if you do this. I try to journal a couple times a week. I'm not as consistent as I should be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think journaling, or maybe just like writing your thoughts into a more of a articulate form, like
Mm-hmm.
formed formula, like thing, like a coherent thing. I think that
Mm-hmm.
really helps you with like conversation and just kind of clearing your head. So I'm just curious, like, what do you think on these strategies and these practices for this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that you're touching on this too. Um, so a few things I'll talk about. I'll start with the weightlifting. Uh, First and foremost, weightlifting has been like really great to keep me focused and disciplined and keep my energy up since I do so many things. And I think my thing too is like I get bored quickly when it comes to like doing the same routines. So I'll try to have a few core things that I do, and then everything else I'll kind of like structure around that. Like right now it's deadlifts, um, dumbbell chest press. I've got some resistance bands I use. Um, Preacher curls are really good for the biceps. So having those core exercises, squats as well, and then looking to see like what else I can integrate. Like I started doing half burpees again, which have been like really great for the core. Um, Doing weighted crunches, and then doing some leg lift exercises, and probably looking into getting like even a rowing machine too, because I want to be able to do uh, some cardio where I have a machine where it's like I'm putting in work, but it's almost like mechanical. I don't have to like necessarily come up with like something new to do each time. Like I'll do my rowing exercises for like 30 minutes or something, maybe 2 to 3 times a week. And I think every few weeks I'll try to switch things up. But for the most part, it's a full body workout 3 to 4 times a week, do a few cardio sessions, do some ab work. And I try to do that in the mornings if I have remote days like today, or if I'm going into the office in Milford, I'll try to structure those where I do that like pretty much as soon as I come home, just kind of knock that out. I have my whey protein that I'll mix in oatmeal. So I'm getting the oats, I'm getting the fiber. I used to just have it as a shake, but I've been trying to like,
Mhm.
not trying to, like I've cut out milk. So I don't really have like even skim milk or dairy that much. So I'll mix it in the oatmeal, and then like it's pretty much a good way to curb any cravings I have for sweets, because I do enjoy sweets. And I try to make sure if I'm going to have something sweet or something fried for like a cheat meal or something, I limit that to 1 day a week or something. And the oatmeal with the whey protein is a great way to like trick my mind into thinking I'm getting something I shouldn't be getting, but I'm getting all the nutritional value and everything. So it's been like a great structure to have the weightlifting, to have the nutrition and the meal plan. I don't even think of it as a diet, because this is just something I've been able to sustain by making small changes here and there, where I'm still eating what I want to eat for the most part, but I'm having like smaller portions, having a lot of protein, not really crazy about dairy in the first place. So don't really have that in the plan. And it's just a process of reevaluating like, okay, this is working. This is not really working that well. Let me change this. So that's been really helpful. And in terms of journaling, I actually have something to show. I got this recently, and this has just been phenomenal. I usually journal on my phone or maybe just a notebook, but this, healing journal has guided exercises and prompts, and it's been really helpful for just staying clear. And I've been able to like pretty much do it on a regular basis. And I love having a
Raheem,
system of
I don't
organization
mean to
too. Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt. Can you just read off the title and the
Yeah.
name of that for anybody listening?
Yep. So the title is A Healing Journal for Black Men, prompts to help you reflect, grow, and live with pride. And this book has been absolutely phenomenal. I'm still scratching the surface, to be honest, but what I'm getting into so far has been really instrumental for, my mental health journey and just optimizing what I do on a daily basis.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure we put, because some people just might be listening instead of watching. So I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Okay. So you were talking about journaling so we talked about the fitness and kind of the weightlifting and journaling.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything else you think about, like just maybe it's something that because I think about with myself, I'm just trying to like compare this. I guess maybe my form of art, like if I do anything that's like a creative process or something that might be, with my business, with the entrepreneurship thing, just like the problem solving and the coming up with the goals or the schedule or, the sales pitch or whatever it is. But I personally, I feel like, a good workout session, man, there's almost nothing that will clear my mind quicker than that. You get to the maybe like to the peak of the workout. I work out. My workouts are about an hour, 60 minutes or so, maybe a little less. And so, you get to the middle or the peak of that, man, and it's like the clarity of mind that comes with it. And I don't know if it's just offsetting the stress or if it's just the endorphins and everything that's kind of running through. I don't know what it is, but it seems like to me working out just really gives me a clarity of mind. And then, like I said, the journaling thing, having a morning routine, a night routine. I mean, these kind of things just, I feel like help me maintain a clear mind. So I was just curious from the artistic point of view, what you think, but I know you talk about journaling and we were talking about fitness, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's good. It's good. I think both weightlifting and the journaling are a form of meditation for me. I've used it if there are moments I feel like I'm stressed or upset, and I think it works best if I'm doing it at like the top of the morning as a meditative exercise. Like it just feels good, pushing beyond my limits. It's fun trying out new exercises. I watch a lot of YouTube videos on it, and I read different articles like in Men's Health, just different exercises I can try to get the most bang for my buck. And I've seen some workouts structured where it's like, okay, maybe do just your chest one day, your arms one day, like your biceps, your triceps another day, your quads another day. And those are cool. But I think for me and how my schedule is set up, where it's like sometimes I might have events to go to and photography shoots and things like that, I enjoy doing those full body workouts. And for some reason, those tend to be like the most meditative for me, where I can do a deadlift and I'm hitting all these, different muscle groups, do some half burpees, do some jumping jacks, and just kind of go through the different muscle groups. And then like, if I'm only able to work out maybe twice a week, like maybe it's a crazy week or something, I can only work out twice a week, I'll know that I hit all the muscle groups regardless. So it's like meditative, getting the most bang for my buck, and then also seeing how that factors in with the nutrition and, maybe getting some more protein on the days that I work out more. And just, it's like almost like a puzzle. Like, okay, it's going to fit like this with my schedule. This is what I have for the week. I'm going to do these full body workouts to maximize, my progress.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. And I agree with that too, because, this is something I talk about a lot too. When we all think of a fitness plan, we think of it's supposed to be a certain thing. And, just because this other person is doing it this way, that maybe we're supposed to do it that way. But I think you hit the nail on the head, man. I think it's what works best for you, and however you can do it in a way that's going to benefit you. And then the main thing too is for however you can do it to be consistent with it. If you go in and try to hit, a different day every day of the week, that might not work for you because your schedule, you're a busy guy, you have things going on. And so you might get to the point where you're like, oh man, I couldn't do this that day. And now I'm behind. And it's just, that's not going to be good for anybody, Right. And so I think the importance of it is just is like you said, having it figured out to where it works for you. And because I've talked about this before too, man. If like it's one thing to do a thing, but it's a whole other thing to be consistent at it. You know,
Yeah.
The guy who works, 4 hours every single day of the week is going to work more than the guy who works 16 hours one day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like whatever you can do to be consistent, whatever that means for you.
Yep.
A big example I use about this is when we talk about waking up. People think they're supposed to wake up to be successful. You should wake up at 5 a.m. And it's like, okay, well, but can you do that consistently? Like, if you
Yeah.
do that, come 7 or 8 p.m., are you just going to be like, absolutely drained? Like, I mean, how does that look for you?
Mm-hmm.
But that's something too, man, that we were talking earlier, or you maybe kind of touched on earlier about these social media clips and everything. I love that we have social media. I love that we have the technology we have, just like this with the podcast, like with the YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
We can learn so much with the technology that we have if we really want to. With the podcast, man, you can listen to. I can't tell you what I've learned, how much I've learned from podcasts just from driving and simultaneously listening to podcasts. I mean, we have these
Yeah.
things at our fingertips, and we should use these things to benefit us because we have this opportunity in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
But also with that, I think social media can be dangerous for us in this same reason, because it's like first of all, most people put the best parts of their lives on social media, and then we want to
Mm-hmm.
compare that, our life to that. And I think that we just have to be aware of that. We have to be conscious of that, because, like a person in your spot, it would be easy for us to look at that and say, oh man, well, he's got all these great things going on and I'm not there. I must suck, And so, but that's not the case. It's just that what we're looking at is we're looking at two different, maybe I'm just starting out, and maybe this is the thing, man. Like, we don't see everything that you've done behind the scenes to get where you're at. Or,
Mm-hmm.
A person who has a flashy car or a successful business, we don't see the things behind the scenes. We just see like where they're at now. And I don't know. Social media is great. I feel like a lot of times we don't use it the way we should. It's just so easy for us to, and it really irritates me, because it's like social media has made entrepreneurship seem like it's an overnight thing. And the problem with that, I feel like, is if people try to do it, it's like it's going to discourage them because they feel like it should be easy. And I'm like, dude, this guy with this flashy car, I mean, he's put in 15 years before this picture. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying, I want to be clear, I'm not saying that you're putting the best part of yourself on social media. I'm saying just in general, people, put themselves on social media. But yeah, man, it's the thing about it is it can be a great tool. Like, it can connect people. I've talked to people from Australia and, Europe and all different parts of Europe and Asia. And it's just like, it's amazing that we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think we should be aware and conscious of the fact that, that what we're looking at. And another thing I have with that too, and this is kind of something I've talked about before. When we look at a person on social media like that, or you see this a lot with celebrities, like football players, musicians, famous people, whatever. It's like we put these people on a pedestal as if they have some sort of, talent or gift that we don't have. And there's no doubt these people are talented, but it's like,
Mm-hmm.
they are a person who, found their talent, found their passion, found their purpose. And you can do this same thing if you're able to find your thing. So I don't know, man. I don't want to get off on a tangent here. I'll go down. I'll talk for a whole hour about that. But I think
cool.
that, I think the technology we have and the social media and the presence of it, I think it can really be something that's beneficial. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I said so much there that I forgot what even sparked that up.
No. It's cool. It's cool. Yeah, I'll respond to that. So I do enjoy social media, and I think it is also, like you were saying, about the awareness of it too, because it's not all good, and being aware of what you're engaging with and what you're consuming. I use X, which used to be Twitter, and it just kind of got to a point where I still like using it, but I don't like using it quite as much because of the current leadership that they have and the fact that certain hate speech is really prevalent. I mean, there's a lot of hate speech on social media, but I catch a lot of it on this app, X. And it's just kind of like realizing, okay, this is not something I want to support or engage with. So what that could look like is unfollowing certain people or maybe even muting certain words. So it's not like getting into my mental health space, and always being aware, like if I'm going on certain apps, there might be certain personalities that are saying and doing certain things that I don't agree with. And it's okay to have different opinions, but when it ventures off into hate speech or degrading someone, that's where, I think a line has to be drawn. And that's what I see about social
Right.
media that I don't really enjoy as much. And in terms of the other point you said with just showing our best selves on social media, I think we all do that to a point. I
Mm-hmm.
think it gets over, what's the word? I think it gets overbearing when the person who's doing it is not really being aware of themselves and just like putting out the flashy stuff and not really taking time to maybe, and I'm not saying like everybody has to like get deep and personal and reflect on social media. There are times when I choose to do that myself and like maybe go a little deeper and say like, hey, well, I have this job now, but last summer I was just doing Uber to pay the mortgage and I was doing this, that, and the third because things were tight. And I don't share that to say like, oh, woe is me and look where I've come from. I do that to hopefully inspire someone and let somebody know like, hey, like you see where I'm at now, like wearing these suits, having this job. This is where I came from. And
Yep.
this is something you can do too. But again, like where is your purpose? Where's your power? Like, do you really want this? Like, are you really going to go for it? It's like being an entrepreneur is just like, to me, it's not an easy thing. I think I excel at it,
Mm-hmm.
but I think part of the reason I excel at it is because I'm so driven. Like I've always had purpose in what I'm doing, like no matter what it is. And I've had to just find what my pathway is as a creative, as an artist, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, and how do all those things intersect, and how do I do good in the world at the same time. So if there's one thing that connects all my social media channels, because I have one for my art, one for my photography, one for my style, I'm all about inspiring people to go get it for themselves, education,
Right.
and also authenticity. I think authenticity is like really, really important, like in your real life, in your social media, how you show up there. I've had people tell me like I'm exactly the same way, like when they meet me versus social media. And I think that's a huge compliment. Like there's just so much out there that is fake and phony. And I'm like, I'm not going to pretend like I've got a Rolls Royce outside because I don't. Like I am
Right.
able to travel. I'm able to have fun with my wife. I'm able to like network, and, I have some great clients, and that's what I'm sharing. Like I'm not sharing anything on social media that is not reality. I'm not sharing anything on social media that is not in the works. So like everything has to be from this place of authenticity, or else like why share it?
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point, man. I'm glad you brought that up because I think that clarifies, I think, what I was trying to say to a great deal. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with a person. Because I mean, I do this myself. I don't think there's anything wrong with a person, putting whatever achievement, from A to B. I was started here, I'm here now, whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think my problem with it is when people, on the other end, look at this as if it's something that whether it's either easy or they think it's going to be an overnight thing, or they,
Mm-hmm.
they compare themselves to this. And then you brought up something else too, man, about, the negativity that we can consume on social media if we
Mm-hmm.
allow ourselves to. I know there's different filters and things that you can put on there, and that's fantastic. I definitely agree with that. But
Mm-hmm.
just the things that you could see from social media, whether it's hate speech or whether it's a news article or something,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I mean, there's just these different things you can see. Uh, but but yeah, you touched on mental health, and I want to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do that, let's do this. Let's take a break just really quick,
Yep.
and we'll be right back. We'll get back and we'll touch on mental health. All right, so uh So okay, so mental health. What are your thoughts on this? Because we touched about this in our initial meeting, and then we touched on it a little bit here today too. So, um, what do you think? What's going on there?
I'll do in general, and then me personally. In general, I
Okay.
think it's extremely important to honor one's mental health and to honor the mental health of others too. Um, Especially coming from a background in education. And I've seen some of the ways that, if someone's mental health isn't taken care of, how that can result in maybe someone becoming violent to themselves or others. And I think there are just ways to, I guess, safeguard against that. I mean, no one's perfect. Everyone has maybe a bad day or two where they're feeling upset, or if they're feeling sad, or maybe a wave of emotions is coming over them. I think for me, finding an outlet, and I think for anybody in general, finding an outlet if you're maybe not feeling great or feeling depressed is just a great support system to have. Having an outlet, having a circle of friends, having a professional you can talk to if that's a pathway you want to go to. Having all those things for me has been like really important for not only being able to be the type of entrepreneur that I am, but also being the type of son that I want to be, the type of husband that I want to be, and so on and so forth. Being able to have like a therapy session in a safe environment, come home to a safe environment. My wife is also a licensed clinical social worker. She's a trauma therapist. So we're able to have like these high level conversations about mental health. And I've learned a lot from her in terms of honoring my own mental health and ways I show up in a healthy way, even if I'm upset, and talking things out. I've been able to, develop a lot of mastery when it comes to maybe stepping off if I get upset, maybe going to lift weights if I'm up at home, or just journaling on the spot and getting things out. Okay, I feel like this today, and I'm upset because this happened. This is what I'm telling myself that it means. And kind of doing that reality check, like, okay, this happened. I'm making it mean this. It doesn't actually mean this, but I'm in a heightened state where I'm so upset that this is what I'm telling myself. So kind of practicing the act of being kind to myself so I can be kind to others too. And just making that a daily practice, even like if I'm maybe writing a short journal entry per day, or even if it's like a few sentences to check in, I think that has been really instrumental in my mental health journey, where I'm able to like kind of unpack stuff from, maybe unpack some stuff from childhood, maybe unpack some stuff from like the past few weeks, maybe work stuff has been, getting kind of crazy, and being able to just clear myself so that I'm able to not only get through the day, but get through the day in a powerful way, in a way where I feel like my mental health is being taken care of. And again, having a great friend group that is also respectful of my mental health and theirs is really important too. Because if you're surrounding yourself with people that don't really take that seriously, or that don't really invest in their mental health, and that could look like differently to them, but like I really think it's an important investment to make on a daily level. Like we had mentioned fitness earlier. And for me, and I've read so many articles about this, and it happens to be true for me as well. If you're taking care of yourself on a physical level, that creates a space where you can take care of yourself on a mental level too, and have everything running how it's supposed to be. It's like I'll work out, and then I'll go do photography, I'll meal prep, I'll do everything else I have to do. So it's like part of that system where like, okay, I'm taking care of the physical here, the creative here, and then, I'm taking care of my mental health and wellness by journaling in between therapy sessions, talking things out with my therapist, doing those check-ins. and then doing those check-ins outside of therapy too. Like if something might happen, maybe I'll text my therapist, hey, can we get an extra session this week because I'm dealing with A, B, and C, and just kind of touching on it a little bit because I'm also trying to consider even in her line of work, I try to not just dump everything out in a text message for what I may be dealing with, just kind of give her a general rundown of what's going on because I respect what she does professionally, especially since my wife is also a therapist, and just kind of being aware of those things. So, yeah, to me, I think mental health is just like a system, a discipline that I buy into every day because it helps me show up as the person that I want to be.
Yeah, man. So you touched on a lot there. I think kind of the first thing you were saying was you were mentioning basically what you were saying was the self-awareness of how what do you think and how do you feel. And I think that's critical because I say all the time that I think self-awareness can solve or at the very least alleviate a lot of our problems that we have. Because, and I think one of the reasons for that is, I think it's easy for us to get reactive to a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you even mentioned something about this, what does this problem mean to you? And I think
Mm-hmm.
the meaning that you give yourself is going to be predicated on the state of your mental health. Because if you're a
Mm-hmm.
person, like let's just say if you're dealing with some things internally and something happens to you, based on the story that you tell yourself of what this thing means, it can have two very different meanings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's critical because I think it's so easy for us to say, like, if a person does something to us and we react to it, I don't know, maybe it depends on what it is. I guess maybe the reaction is justified, maybe it's not. But at the end of the day, your reaction to this thing is your reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important for us to be aware of what we think, how is our mental health, because that is gonna basically it's gonna influence the rest of your life or the
Yeah.
outside of your life based on what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that's a very good point. I wanted to ask you because so as it relates to art and mental health, do you,
Mm-hmm.
and for you, this might be a little bit easier of a question because I feel like you're passionate about art. So it probably will, be sort of I don't want to say antidepressant, but it will help mental health. I feel like if you're passionate about something and doing something, but I think they make these like, it's made for adults. I think it's like these little things that you color with a whatever
Yeah.
coloring pencil, and it's supposed to help alleviate anxiety and that kind of thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's obviously some sort of connection with art and with mental health. So do
Mm-hmm.
you see it in your line of work? Just kind of, and like I said, I know with you, maybe I don't know, maybe it's an easier question to ask because you're passionate about it. But if you're just like working on an art piece, is that something that's kind of just a natural? I don't want to assume antidepressant because that implies you have depression, and I don't mean to do that. But I just just something to help you out mental health wise. Do you think art is a way to do that?
Oh, absolutely. I think every piece of art that I work on in pretty much every medium that I use is a form of mental health and mental wellness. Sometimes I think I'm just creating art and it happens naturally. And I'm not necessarily being intentional about it. Like this just brings me joy. This uplifts me. Um, I enjoy having this discipline and this skill to be able to create this art. So there's that part of it. But if I'm being intentional about creating art because maybe I woke up on the wrong side of the bed and I want to put something together on my iPad that causes me to be in a better mood, I usually go to doing abstracts for that, like abstract painting, sometimes still lifes. But I think if I'm doing an abstract, everything else kind of gets out of the way, where I'm just kind of putting some paint on the digital canvas, so to speak, and seeing what comes out of it. And then by the end of it, I'm feeling lighter and I'm feeling liberated, like I can, tackle the day. So I think abstract painting is my outlet for when I want to be intentional about mental health and improving the state of my mental health.
Yeah, that's a really good point, man. Because I think we can, you know, what's crazy about art is like the different forms of art. Like you can go to a museum and see paintings, or you can listen to music and hear the words. Like it's like different forms of art. It's like it resonates. You know,
Hmm.
like it's easy to hear it with musicians because they say the words, and it's like, oh man, you know I like that, or I feel that way, or I think that, or I agree with that or whatever it is. But it's like when you go to a museum, man, and you see like a piece of art, it's just like you don't really know why, but it's like some of these things resonate with you. And I
Hmm.
think it's because what the only thing I can think of from the outside looking in as a person who's not a visual artist, it just seems like maybe there's emotion that's just poured into these pieces.
Hmm.
You know, it's just like this is this artist way of expressing emotion visually, whereas you know a musician does it with words, whereas uh, a boxer or a fighter does it with like a unique fighting skill. I mean, these all
Hmm.
these things are just like it's almost like this person's personality is put into this,
Hmm.
and it's crazy when you see these things that it resonates because like we think oh well we're looking at a painting of a river with a house and like yeah that's it's very detailed and that's but it's deeper than that. You know what I mean? Like there's
Hmm.
it's like something that's there that like draws you in, you know. Um, and especially with like illustrations, especially something that's like I don't want to use I don't know what the word for this is. Like, you know, there's like these real life depictions almost it's art. Somebody drew it, but it looks almost like a picture. And
Hmm.
then there's things that are like more abstract, like more illustrative, like you know, and so it's even those like it's like it resonates with you. And I find that fascinating because there's clearly something there that we're seeing that we're connecting with.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think what you're touching on, when I look at art, when I create art for myself, I'm always thinking like, okay, you've got your surface level here, and then maybe there's are
Mm-hmm.
deeper levels of meaning beneath that. When it comes to like, I like to go places and create art on the spot, urban landscape paintings and things like that. Every time I do one of those, there's usually a deeper meaning behind it. So I'll give you an example. I had the privilege of going to Cuba a few years ago. I think I want to say 2018, and going there, being in Old Havana, the old part of town in Havana, Cuba, was really cool because I got to see, again, the authenticity and meeting locals and connecting with them and having really good food and just kind of learning what life is like over there. So when I was creating art, and usually I create art on my iPad when I travel, but since I was going to a communist country, I was like, let me not bring the iPad just for safety reasons. And then each and every day I journaled just in case the government needed a record of what I was doing there, because you kind of had to declare why you were going to a certain place. And for me, it was photography and journalism. So I would meet with people, talk to them, learn their stories, take photos, and then keep a journal. And then for the paintings I was doing, I would either take reference photos while I was there walking through town, or I would create like little mini paintings on my iPhone of these different places. And my favorite painting that I did from my time there was actually from a reference photo, meaning I took a picture of one of the classic cars that they have over there that they were able to miraculously keep up. It was magenta, and I remember from the painting and the picture I took too, the driver was just sitting, uh, leaning on the back of his car, waiting for people to come and ride around town with him. And that was his main way of making money. Having this classic car, getting that experience where you're riding in the classic car, getting the touristy experience, having a good time. And to me, it was like something like the whole experience felt like being in a film. And that particular moment in time, just seeing him, biding his time until somebody came over to pay him for a ride, I was like, I got to turn that into a painting. So I took the picture. I think I made the painting maybe a few days or a week after I got back because I wanted to put a lot of time and detail into it. So at surface level, if you're looking at it, it's a classic Buick with a guy at the back and he's waiting. But the deeper level is I went for photography and journalism. I'm walking around. I see this car. I see this scene. I want to capture it. And then I'm also looking at the other people that are about to engage with him and come over. And then behind that, there were the waves because I was near the ocean out there. And then just everything is like brimming with culture. So it's like you've got surface level and those deeper levels that follow. And when I think of all the great paintings out there, I think there's the surface level, the deeper meaning, and then what the viewer is making it mean too. So like all these different layers just mixed in there.
Yeah, that's really that's an amazing way to put that, because I think I'm trying to visualize this in my mind, and that's just like as you're saying this, I can see this. I think a lot of times we see the surface level of that, man, but it's like taking like that picture, not just because it's a still picture, but just like that picture is almost a way to just, stop and take in the presence of everything. That's to me, that's my interpretation of this when we're talking about this.
Yep.
Because it sounds like there's a lot of people walking around, and
Yeah.
everybody's got their thing going on, and they're, rushing to a meeting, or they got to go pick up the kids or whatever it is. And like everybody's kind of just, everybody's living in the future. But like to me, this is a way to kind of condense everything into the present, the present moment. And I don't know how much you get into meditation or not, but when you think about the present moment is really all there ever is. I mean, like the past that we remember the past, or we imagine the future, that's still another present moment. But a lot of us, we're just so busy, man. We're just so, goal oriented. A lot of us live in the future, but it's just like this, like just taking that moment to just be in the present. To me, that's what if I were to see that, that would be what I just from the visual I have, that would be a reminder to me to just kind of like, take in the present moment, which is, I mean, a reminder like that every once in a while, man, it sounds like a simple thing, but it's not,
No, it's
because
not.
because your life is a combination of all these present moments in your life. I mean, we can think about the goal. This is something that I talk about a lot too. We can think about the goal that we're going to, we can think about where we're going, where we're headed, but it's like the moments that lead up to that is going to be what, for most people, they would say that the journey of that is the prize. If people have children, it's not that when the child becomes an adult at 20 years old or 18 or 25 or whatever it is, it's all the moments that led up to that. And I'm not a parent, I can't comment on that, but just, from outside looking in, but just like a person who builds a business, I mean, yeah, we want to have, certain number of revenues, employees, whatever we want to have, but it's like the events that led up to that, man. It's those little individual present moments. We look back on that and we're like, man, I can't believe that I was able to make that work or make it through that, but I did, and I'm a better person because of it. And it's just, I think we grow in the process. I think the process is there to teach us how to grow, because the goal, if we're working on something for a decade, man, the precise goal might change, but the person that we become in the process, we're going to be that person regardless.
Yeah.
So, just not to get off on another tangent here, but just the present moment, man, is just, I think it's so important to be reminded of that every once in a while.
Yeah, it is. I think that's why I meditate. That's why I work out. And that's why I create art, is to reflect on the present moment, be as present as possible, because, there's so much going on. But yeah, meditation is really important to me too. My wife and I practice that consistently.
I don't meditate as much as I used to. I was consistent with it for a while, but when I did, man, it was very beneficial. Like I just, just to be able to clear your head, and just have that, 10, 15, 5 minutes, whatever it was. So you've mentioned a couple times here about authenticity. And what are your thoughts on that authenticity? Well, I don't want to insinuate. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think it's
because I mean that could go like a lot of different ways.
Yeah, a lot of different directions. For one, I think it's extremely important. I don't like anything that's fake and phony. I don't like surface level conversations. I like deep conversations. I like conversations that make me think. I like people that make me think. And I like people that are authentically themselves. And, I might not always gel with that, but at the end of the day, at least the person is being authentic and truthful. And if there's no authenticity, that kind of leaves me with, okay, does this person have something they're withholding, or maybe something they haven't processed or dealt with? So it could look like that, but it could also look like, this person is not comfortable in their own skin. So going back to that social media piece too, and authenticity, I think of as being authentically you, being bold and being fearless, and just showing up as who you are. Like I think that's just extremely important, like in any field, really.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I don't really think there's a way for us to. I don't know. I don't think a motivation of life is to be happy, but I mean, just to live a fulfilling life, to live a life that we feel like is driven by our purpose. I don't know if there's a way to do that other than to be authentically who we are.
Right.
Um, and I think when you're inauthentic and you're not authentic with people, I think that has the adverse effect than what people think it does, because people can't really trust you because
Right.
they don't know what you think or feel, or what, I mean, it's like, at least an authentic person, like you said, maybe you don't agree with them, but at least where they're at or where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you've mentioned something about that too. I think this kind of open-mindedness, about you have this, you try to, listen to something, maybe you don't necessarily agree with it or kind of see somebody's point of view. That implies, I don't think people realize this, but that implies intelligence and also confidence, because you can hear something that maybe you don't agree with, but you're still grounded in your own beliefs, and that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that this person's, I think sometimes we think that just because someone, in order to listen to what someone has to say, I think that we think we have to change our beliefs for that. And,
Yeah.
that's not the case. I mean, we can have thoughts and exchange thoughts and communicate with people, and still stay grounded in who we are and like what we believe and, kind of where we're coming from. And I think that's the beauty of just having these relationships with people. Cause you can, I mean, how much could a person not learn if they were just to automatically shut off a person that just doesn't think what they think? I mean, you can learn a lot from seeing different views of the world, different cultures, different places in the world that you've never seen before. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be very unwise of us or not wise of us to just cut that part off and just not see that part just because it's not something that we agree with. Anyways, that's so. Yeah, you mentioned a couple times about that. Listen, man, I'm gonna have to get out of here in just a little bit. I want to make sure that we
Mm-hmm.
have. I have a couple other things to ask you. I want to make sure we have time for this. Where can
Yeah.
people find you online?
Sure. So you can find me, first and foremost, my website, raheemnelson.com. That's RaheemNelson.com. For social media, Instagram is at Raheem Nelson Art. You've got at Raheem Nelson Style and at Raheem Nelson Photo. And those channels will connect you to all my entrepreneurial stuff. In terms of what I do for my day job, you can go on milfordarts.org to be connected with all our programming. We have jazz concerts. We have some hip hop coming up. We're in our theater productions right now. There's always something fun going on at the Milford Arts Council. And you can literally get off the train in Milford, Connecticut, cross the tracks, and then Arts Council's right there, and we're surrounded by all these wonderful restaurants too. So definitely check us out at milfordarts.org.
Okay, and if you'll send me the links, I'll attach them to the descriptions.
Great.
If you have any
Yeah.
links you want to share.
Yep. I'll send some stuff.
But okay, man, this has been a great conversation.
It's been a
I
pleasure,
want to ask
Cody.
you one last thing before we close out.
Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. It really has. I want to ask you one last thing before we close out. Kind of something I ask everybody.
Mhm.
If you had to kind of pinpoint one of the most important lessons or most valuable lessons you've ever learned, it can be through your career, through your personal life, if you're comfortable sharing it. What do you think? Just the most important maybe piece of wisdom you've ever learned in your life that you'd be comfortable sharing?
There's a few things I could share. But I think tenacity is what comes to mind, just with this conversation. Being tenacious in my career as an artist, being tenacious when I was courting my wife, being tenacious with getting in the type of career that I have now, and having that positive self-talk. Because if you're psyching yourself out, how do you expect to be able to move forward? So I think for me, whenever I was in those situations or having those days where I was like, okay, like I don't really see this going anywhere, I don't know about this, I think that's when you want to take the time to sit down and reflect, see what's working, see what could be working better. And then going from there, I think taking time to pause and, like we were talking about earlier, being present, like just kind of acknowledging the feelings, like, hey, like I feel kind of crappy today. Like, what can I do about that? And having that self-awareness really helps to be able to move forward. And then from there, having the tenacity to follow through. I think follow through is really important, because you can say you're going to do anything, but like, are you really going to hold yourself accountable? Are you really going to be around people that are going to help you stay accountable for what you want to accomplish? And then from there, if you have that cocktail, so to speak, you're set up for success.
I love that. Yeah, I love that, because that does make a lot of sense. We didn't touch on the environment that you put yourself in, whether it's those around you, friends, coworkers, family, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's a really big thing. I think that matters.
Yeah.
We it's easy to hear and say that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But,
Right.
I think you just, in that last little bit there, you were.
Yeah.
I think in the last little bit there, you were saying about the people that you have around you. I think that's really important, man.
It matters.
Just kind of
Yeah.
be with like-minded people that are, yeah, people
Mm-hmm.
who are going to, support you when you have a goal, when you have a thing to do, so
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things definitely matter.
Yep.
But man, listen, it's been great. I know we got
Likewise.
off into some deep stuff there,
Yep.
and I wish you all the best, man. Wish you the best of luck. I feel like it's clear you're passionate about what you're doing, so I think it's gonna work well for you. Hope it does, and I think that's it, man. I think it's following that passion, that purpose. Well, I guess I should say maybe the passion leads to the purpose. There's a lot of,
Yeah.
in the self-help world, there's a lot of talk about, how do I find my purpose and this kind of thing. And I think, like I said earlier, I think that passion is there for a reason, because
Yeah, it is.
it's not like everybody has the same passion.
Right.
So, I think those things matter.
It does.
But man, I'm going to let you get out of here. Let me stop the video and I'll explain to you about the uploading process and all that good stuff. And,
Okay.
but other than that, man, I definitely appreciate your time. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Hey guys, I appreciate everybody tuning in today. If you enjoyed this podcast or enjoyed this episode, you can find more at Pure Wisdom Podcast. This is on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Rumble, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple and Google Podcasts. There you can subscribe, like, and share and interact with all of our content. Again, we appreciate it, and we will see you next time.